From the southernmost point of Door to the lands of always winter, and what is west of west, and the shadows in the east, this is Casterly Talk, and I am Ken Napzok, happy to be with you all live on my YouTube channel for the first ever live Casterly Talk. This is a show where we go inside the world of Ice and Fire. We might look back at Game of Thrones. We might look ahead to the House of the Dragon. We might even talk about that book you might want one day, Winds of Winter, and a whole lot more. We are live right now with you guys watching on YouTube. We got some questions. We got people like Eddie Haskell, Eric Monroe, Will McLean watching live. And this is also, of course, released a lot later as a podcast because we love audio just as much as video. And when I say we, I can't do this alone. Joining me on the show today is Sir Thomas the Tall, Thomas Rissling, and Ace Andres Cabrera. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Ken. It's great to be on with both you and with Andres. It's a first for me, so I'm grateful.
Ace.
I'm so excited to be here. Dorne, representing Dorne. Literally, Sun Spear.
Oh, yeah, you were there, man. You were at a undisclosed bunker in Arizona, the greater Arizona area. Right now,
lands, the desert.
We're doing this show from it's a West Coast flavor here. Thomas, you were up in the Great White North, beyond the wall, in the well, I don't want to give your exact location away in case you have some enemies out there, but you're a nice Canadian gentleman, correct?
I mean, I think so, at least. It's I don't know about the Great White North here, man. It's quite warm. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, we're having some warm weather going on here in where I'm at, beautiful Burbank, California. So happy to have both of you here doing this live. Love bringing you both on. Thomas does the Ruminations from the Realm segment, also joins me when we can. And what's interesting, we especially during season 8, we had Lon Harris, Rachel Cushing, who, by the way, I've reached out to both of them, and schedule permitting, next week and beyond, they'll be joining the show as well. Don't worry about that. Rachel and Lon both very excited to get back to talking Game of Thrones with us here. Ace and I, when we can, we get in person. Thomas, it's hard for you to get in person, but now necessity, mother of invention. We're all doing our duty, being locked away, being safe at home, and kind of flattening curves. Now it's inexcusable to not do a show live with StreamYard here on YouTube with you guys with me, right? Am I not? Am I crazy, Ace?
Yeah, there's no excuses anymore.
No, 'tis the season, man. I swear, I feel like hitting up famous people now and just being like, hey, you want to talk on StreamYard? I know you don't know me, but I have a podcast.
Well, so. You got Krasinski doing, the Something Good Network from his kitchen without even like a mic, just a MacBook camera and mic. I mean, you might as well, Ace. Happy to be with both of you here and more people checking in live, watching us like Donald Long, Glenn Caesar, Elicuse here as well, saying cool beans, one of my favorite phrases. So we, on this show, for those who may be watching or listening for the first time, or those who are old veterans, what we do? We kind of look forward, we look back. We've been dealing with some great what ifs lately. To start the show off, though, I had some good questions from folks on my Discord server, which is attached to my Patreon page at Ken Napzok, patreon.com/Ken Napzok. So some questions going here right now here. Let me go with this first one here from Sarah Risley. We like Sarah. She's a great event coordinator in my hometown area. Does a lot of things. She does a lot of things. You can't put her in a box, but she's a great Game of Thrones fan and a book fan. And she asked this question, Thomas says, where do you and your guests, that's us and that's you, stand on the Winds of Winter? I remember at a time when I checked the publisher's website once a month for updates. And now I should just be satisfied with the series, whether the 3,000-page manuscript comes out or not. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen now that he has to stay in, which has been part of the conversation right now as George get the work done. All right, Andres, I'll start with you here. Winds of Winter, we're book readers, we're book fans. We want the story to continue, but do you even worry about it anymore?
No.
End of the show. Good night, folks.
Bye. No, it's one of those things now where I know George right now is so occupied. We've talked about it a lot before, about how kind of George has kind of been lifted above and beyond the book world, the novel world that he started off in. Now that he's in the TV world, the promo world, the money-making world, I guess you can say, that I don't know how much incentive he has to kind of restart his journey. And every book he does is always, thick. It's long. It has a lot of detail. Does he really want to do that right now? I mean, at this point, I'd be happy with the shortened version or even an outline just because I'm so desperate for content. But I feel like when it comes, it comes. Yeah. And no matter what, when it comes, because I think it will. I mean, eventually it will. I just feel like when it does, it'll be an event, right? I mean, think about, I've talked about it before on Riley's show, the idea of the new Star Wars movie, whenever that happens, like regardless of what the movie will be about, since it'll be so far off in the future, people will watch. It'll be a huge hit. So I think he's kind of milking it, especially after season 8, considering that the longer he waits after season 8, the more people feel like, okay, finally we have the conclusion that we wanted from George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, I like what you said there, Thomas. I'll kick it to you in a second here. Eric Monroe says, I can't believe the last book for the main series came out in 2011. Excellent point here from Donald Long. At this point, I'm more worried about A Dream of Spring because we have one more after this, Thomas. Eric, yes. 9 years. Where's your heart at with this book?
That was going to be my next comment is I'm still cautiously optimistic for Winds of Winter. I don't really expect it at any point, but I hope for it. I know it's going to come at some time, and my biggest concern with that is Dream of Spring afterwards. We're already sitting here talking about, how long it's been 9 years. Previously, I think the longest period between his books releasing was 7 years. So we're already 2 years past that. How much longer can we patiently wait, I guess?
Yeah, I'm at a point where it's like I think it's going to happen. Like I would love it. There's a lot of things going on. I think we make the jokes. I make the jokes about George sitting at home in New Mexico, just having more nachos instead of writing and all that kind of stuff. But there's stuff on the publisher side. There's the show that not got in the way. I would never say that the show got in the way. George did, as you pointed out, did do that. Like, well, I accidentally became a rock star and I didn't have as much time to write the book. I don't necessarily think that is as much as a factor now, but it's part of it, to your point, Ace. So I don't know, 2 weeks from now, if they did guess what? Here's the book. We did some copy editing, but here it is in its form. That's not really going to happen. But if something like that happened, I think the world would explode with joy. I don't know if it's going to happen, Ace.
Yeah, it's exactly what Thomas said. I'm hopeful for Winds of Winter. I don't know about Dream of Spring. Dream of Spring, it's like at this point, I'll take the summary because I don't know if that book is going to happen. But Winds of Winter, I'm pretty confident will.
Yeah. Thomas, what are you going to do when the book finally lands in your lap?
Take however many days I think I'll need and spend all of those days reading that book. I think we've all been chomping at the bit for it for so long that I think to wait any longer than the moment you get home with it is almost going to hurt. Yeah.
How much do you think? Let's go let's close this topic with some conspiracy theories, which are fun, not always true. But how much do you think George was like, all right. The show is done. I want kind of that to get out of people's minds. And then maybe a year from now, boom, we could almost start fresh. And I'm out from the shadow of that show as much as I loved it or didn't love it. And he'll never tell us either way. He plays it coy. How much do you think right now he's just like, it's done, but I'm holding off? Thomas, is there something with this?
I think there may be, and that might lend itself to what Ace was mentioning earlier, Andreas was mentioning earlier. When we talk about Star Wars having this kind of period and the next movie will be a success, I feel very similarly to this. And I think there is always that chance. But again, he's posting on his Nota blog talking about the fact that he's up in his kind of mountain getaway working every day on Winds of Winter. So I choose to subscribe to that instead.
Yeah, I always believe what he says more than anything. I think he just enjoys taking his time, not to make us suffer, but just because he is an author through and through. So Donald Long brings up a final great question about the books here. We all enjoyed this book, Fire and Blood. Donald says, hopefully we still get Fire and Blood Part 2. So here's a tough question. I think we all, Thomas and I, you love the book. Ace, you love Fire and Blood too, right? We're on board with this. It's going to be the basis of House of the Dragon. Parts of it we don't know what. How I'm not going to say I'm divided, but there's a part of my brain, 70-30, that's like, maybe if you could just finish Fire and Blood 2, I'd love to dive into that. Wins a winner. It can come when it comes. Thomas, am I alone in that?
No, I'd at this point love anything from George. If it's Fire and Blood 2, great. If it's Winds of Winter, great. If it's a fourth part of Dunk and Egg, even better. I'm open to anything from him. I'd hope it's Winds, but yes, I'd happily accept the second part of Fire and Blood.
Ace, you want Winds first and all the supplement material second, or but at this point is it just give me more History of Dragons?
I mean, at this point, I'll take anything. Like Thomas, I'll echo that. But I just think it'd be so funny if he's like, "Hey guys, new book coming out, Fire and Blood 2," and it's like, oh, the people would react like crazy. I think it would be an amazing reaction. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, during this quarantine, would it now be the perfect time to like pre-release? I mean, just heard about the MJ documentary that's coming out earlier. I'm so thirsty for content right now. I'm excited for WrestleMania tomorrow, for crying out loud. Like, I'm so excited. I've been watching so many matches. Anything, I'll take anything. We'll
do a live reaction. Casterly talks wrestling. We'll do that too. Great stuff. Great question from Sarah to start us out. We're going to go to a call next through the Anchor app. I can take calls, pre-recorded messages. You can listen to the podcast anywhere, but you can go to the Anchor app and call in. And this first one is from someone who's in the chat now. He's a regular caller and contributor to the show, even going back to the old days when it was Daily Thrones, which is where we first heard the wonderful voice of Sir Thomas the Tall right there. This is our friend Eric Monroe. Eric Monroe, with a great question that I don't know if I have the answer yet, but here we go.
Hey, Ken and Casterly Talk. So I recently completed my rewatch of Game of Thrones, and I'm thinking about it now. I'm trying to think, like, what was my favorite opening scene to a season, not counting the pilot, going from season 2 to season 8. There's a lot of good choices. I mean, season 7, seeing Arya take out the Freys is certainly a good choice. The flashback scene in season 5 with Cersei is another good choice. But for me, I think I got to go with season 4, seeing Tyrion Lannister standing there as ice is just melted down and forged into 2 new swords. Just, hearing the Reigns of Casper playing and seeing Tywin just standing there was a great moment. Charles Dance just so wonderful in the role. And it was also like kind of a good bookend moment to the season because we know what happens to Tywin Lannister at the end of season 4. So for you, what was your favorite opening scene to a season?
This is a tough question because I think first we should even try to just challenge ourselves to remember what are the choices for 8 seasons. Help me here, guys. Jump in here. We got the cold open from the pilot episode, which includes Will, Garrett, Raymer Royce going north of the wall and setting the tone for what's coming, which might be my answer. I don't know. Season 2. Where do we go to? I forget already. Season 2. What's the cold open of season 2? What's the first scene of season 2?
Oh man, me too.
I'm already. Yeah, it's already. It's already, my mind's going. Season 3, though, that does begin with what's left over of season 2's end with the battle, right? We got the great moment there. Is it Sam and the Watch? Sam and the Watch from season 2, says Eric. I'm trying to remember that too, as well.
Yeah, the opening scene with them going north, right?
Yeah, because they've gone. Yeah, yeah. You're right. But season 3 begins with the Jorah Mormont, everyone you've ever known will be dead type of speech. 4, we got the Tywin Lannister one there. 5, I'm jumping into 5 now. Trying to remember 5. Is that season 2 is Joffrey and Sansa, right? That's the first one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's Dantos Hollard getting drunk or getting the wine. Right. Put down. Kind of a softer open. 5, 6, 7, 8, counting down in my brain. I'm trying to remember everything that's going on. So that's the tough thing now, even though the show's so fresh. Arya, season 7, taking out House Frey is a great moment. And then 8 beginning with everyone marching down, right? The wall has crashed. So 8 is there, and then 6, Davos finding John, which is the the wolf howls, and there, great stuff there. Oh, that's right, Eric Monroe. So this is why Eric's here. He had the flashback scene for season 5. Maggie the Frog, Jodie May, and Cersei, young Cersei there. So all right,
Yeah, he said it in the call.
he did say it in the call. So that I just wanted to get that all out there because I couldn't. Like I said, just it's that all kind of squishes into one a lot there. So all right. So what do we got here? What do we got? What are your answers? Best opening scene. I'm gonna need. I can give you a runner up or two, but I'm gonna need your final answer. Thomas, do you have something?
I gotta take Eric's bait here and go with season 7. It's that payoff, man. I think I just took it from Andreas too. I think season 7's that payoff. We all were wondering where Arya's story was going to lead, and a lot of people, that story was a lot of frustration. And I think regardless of how you felt about her whole story in the House of Black and White, I think that moment still paid off for most people anyways.
Yeah, that's Andreas, you back that up? You going with something different?
So no, I'm going with Eric's. I know Eric mentioned that one, but Eric's choice, season 4, Two Swords, Tywin, my boy Tywin. Yeah, I mean, literally one of my favorite seasons. Introduces one of my favorite all-time characters in any show ever with Oberyn Martell. Introduces so many different storylines, but the Two Swords moment of ice being melted down into Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper. Yeah. And just the Lannister, it's just incredible. I mean, it makes me just crave my Lannister side a little more and just feel that, especially with Tywin just watching over the whole thing and Tywin being one of my favorite characters. That has to be my choice as well.
What I love about that choice, and it's maybe a runner-up for me, I think I still go with the cold open of the pilot. But sometimes you have to put that on a Hall of Fame shelf. And I really think I might go to season 3, which is the beginning, the tail end of the fight that we don't really see at the Fist of the First Man and all that stuff. I just love Sam, Jorah Mormont saving the day, the chaos, the sounds, everything in that speech. It just, and then it goes into, it's actually a cold open. It goes into the opening theme. It's like, oh wow, what a season we got going. Though season 3 isn't one of my favorite seasons, which is, I don't love ranking seasons because I love them all. But going back to your moment, Ace, and Thomas, I want to dive in here with you. What I do love about that choice, Tywin, is it's season 4. Ned died in season 1. And you and I, Thomas, last week talked about the legacy and the shadow of Ned over the story. And I felt it then, 4 years, watching that sword be melted down. Going back, it's just like, it's so tied into just the core of everything going on and what started us on this journey.
Yeah, and I think it's very perfectly a Lannister scene. You know, it's the Lannisters taking something that's old and historic and manipulating it to be something that suits their image, that suits their own narrative, their own version of history. I dig it. Yeah.
Ace, is that why you like it? It has everything going forward and everything going backward of the show. It's kind of a midpoint.
It is. And if you think about it, I mean, I remember my first reaction watching it, to be honest. I mean, my first reaction, I felt like, oh no, how dare you? Like, that's my ice. Like, as a Stark fan, the Stark fan in me was like, oh, this is like, it's almost like spitting on the grave of Ned Stark on top of his chopped head. And now, but at the other side of me, as I said before, was like my Tywin side of like, this Lannister moment of just complete epic domination and dominance over everything they've been doing. And it has that two feelings, but it almost feels like a conclusion of like the Lion and the Wolf, and the Lion seems to be like clear winner in this case with that scene.
Yeah, well said. One of my runner-up choices would be the one I actually blanked on, where's the flashback with Maggie the Frog. I know the Valonqar part of the prophecy cut out, which is, it was one of those clues along the way that the show was definitely doing its own thing, and I think in a good way. And I think having to cut off things that just didn't matter to their story, but do matter to us in the books. And I think both worlds can live side by side. But the Maggie the Frog scene, because Cersei Lannister, it's in such a just vibrant visual way, and just go back and see what fuels her, what fear fuels Cersei on top of all the bad things that have happened to her. I think it was a really effectual use of going back, which they didn't do often and is tricky to do. Thomas, I don't know what you've thought about that scene and how it stands up for you.
Yeah, I mean, I won't make a blanket statement, but oftentimes flashbacks feel out of place. And I think because it's the open of a season, it didn't whatsoever. And as you said, I think we're all book readers are okay with that split. I mean, I know I was.
Right.
But I think that really nailed in stone what to expect from prophecies out of the show. You know, we kind of, as we got closer to the end, realized that prophecies didn't matter much and weren't really going to be made to come to a head.
Yeah, the prophecies were used to just put a finer point on things and just a lot of the bigger pictures. And I also think the prophecies didn't lie. We always hear me talk about going back to season 2, the show prophecy versions of the House of the Undying. Just kind of laid a lot of things out there that I think we were willing to ignore at the time or willingly misinterpret at the time. Like, oh, Danny's standing in a bombed out red keep, man. I wonder how that happened. Like, we saw it coming down there, but it was a different use of the prophecies on the show than the book, for sure. You just can't go in as detail. Any other runner-up choices from you guys, Andres?
I mean, I was going to go off that one and just say that my first reactions are always different than, eventually my conclusion, because I do a lot of rewatches. But my first reaction was like, oh, Cersei has always kind of sucked. Like, even as a little girl, I was like, damn, Cersei, like, you were always kind of
she had some problems.
Crappy. Yep. At least that was my first reaction. But man, there's so many. That Arya moment is incredible for sure.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so much there. But I again, if I had to choose, it would be that Cersei moment for sure. Because again, of the prophecy of Maggie the Frog coming to fruition, that whole thing was kind of powerful.
It was indeed. Eric Monroe points out in the comments, I think that was the first flashback scene the show did, not counting the flashback scene in the unaired pilot with the Mad King, which I'd still love to see from the unaired pilot. I don't think we'll ever see that there. I don't know. But one day. Next question here. We got a couple questions. This is again going back to my Discord. Christy McGee, Ball Drop McGee, she's known around these parts. She asked simply, would Peter Baelish go out with me? Check yes or no. Andres, you're the Peter Baelish expert. What do you think?
Yes, 100%.
100%.
As we've seen in the show. He likes them girls, man.
He'll do what he's got to do. And I think Christy McGee, you would offer him some a good climb up that chaos ladder, I'm sure, to move up in power. Thomas, yes or no? You agree? Our friend Christy McGee and Peter Baelish would be just a great power couple.
Check yes for Christy McGee, as always.
Next question from our friend Johnny Mariano, who is out in New York and is a co-host, co-producer of a podcast feed you're working on, Thomas. While I get ready to read his question, tell us all about this new podcast feed that just launched this week.
Yeah, so we're all using some of this spare time to kind of follow through on an idea we had last August, which is launch our own podcast feed and make it very collaborative, where, we all have our own individual shows, but we regularly guest on each other's. And fun is the priority. We've done lots of things in the past where you spend time putting time in and it just doesn't feel like you get anything back. And this for us is just that complete artistic expression, be a little goofy, have some fun. And John is a big part of that.
I love that. Johnny Mariano's a good guy, good kid. All right. John asks this. Hey, Ken and Casterly folks, I'm a casual fan of Game of Thrones. I've never read the books, but never missed an episode of the show that would lose every trivia competition about it. I guess you could say I socially drink and know nothing, distantly, of course. Do you think a fan such as myself needs to read or know anything going into the prequel series? Love you all from a respectable difference, says John Mariano out there in New York. So that is, House of the Dragon, something we're all very interested in. Not just be the simple thing of, hey, cool, more Game of Thrones related content, but having really just enjoyed Fire and Blood Part 1 and just what the potential could be of this history book. And I know the book didn't grab everyone, but I loved it. I know we loved it here, just kind of as a team at Casterly Talk. Thomas, do you think a casual fan, a quote unquote casual fan of John Mariano's caliber there, do you think he should research, go in, or just go in blind?
I don't think you need any research going in. If it's about requirement, I'd say no. I think we all can kind of assume they're not going to create an entry-level barrier like that to a television prequel series. I think we can safely assume the prequel series will follow the show and be a prequel to the show. I guess we could be wrong. If that's the case, I'd say no. I'd say no. Don't read anything. Go in blind. Don't set yourself up for any expectations. Just go in and enjoy it.
It might be the best way. It's too late for us. But again, I came to the books later, like 2000, the second half of 2011. But I was show first with this. Oh, I think I heard about this thing and just was blown away. And I don't think the show ever pandered to a casual fan or a new fan, and they never. They never hid the details and the small things that book readers were looking. They did their best to kind of merge it together into a show that could reach a wide audience. Clearly it did. So going forward, even though it's the same, channel behind it, different teams, Potchnik, a lot of people coming over. But Andres, I can't imagine them, like Thomas said so well, putting any kind of barriers to non-readers into the show.
I mean, we talked about it. We did a whole episode on this where you and I discussed the idea of this whole show is the idea of allowing general watchers of the show before to be able to accept the show and enjoy the show on a scale of not knowing much of anything. Like if all they know is like, oh, this is the medieval show that has dragons, that's kind of all they need to know. And they wanted that kind of screenplay, that kind of level of show to allow people to tune in freely and not be worried about like this dense book they have to read before or watching every episode of Game of Thrones beforehand. Like I almost guarantee there's going to be people who've never seen Game of Thrones who will watch this show just because they heard there's a dragon in it and it's killing people. And they'll be like, cool, I'll watch. You'd be surprised how many people will watch just based off that.
Thomas, that's what brought you to Game of Thrones, right? Killing dragons, like dragons that are killers. Like you were like, I'm on board.
Yeah. I'm on board. Yep,
Yeah.
That's what hooked me in the first place. So, yep.
Yeah, good point there, Ace. Chad Benefield asked this question here. He says, hey, Ken and Casterly Talk team, there is so much ancillary material out there in the book form detailing the history of Westeros. What are some of the best historical material you have read outside Fire and Blood? So there are a lot of things out there. I go to the World of Ice and Fire book, which is that big one, and it's got a lot of pictures, but it's got a lot of detail, but not overwhelming. I think you can pick a section, go through. Tonight I'm going to read about the Long Night or the Night's Watch or something like that. What are some of your other favorite Game of Thrones related ancillary material, Thomas?
Gotta go with Night of the Seven Kingdoms. The three stories of Dunk and Egg are to me, I actually think they're superior to the main series just for my personal taste.
Why is that?
Partially just because it captures that stereotypical fantasy feel, someone who's not meant to do a thing doing this thing and really falling into some failure while they're doing it. Like we see that with Dany, but I think it's much more stereotypical with the story of the knight and the squire.
Yeah.
And there's also some great history in there. Like, if you read that first and then move into Song of Ice and Fire, that could be very interesting for you. Yeah. Because I it's funny. Only now that I think about it, I've only read the graphic novel versions of the Dunk and Egg Tales. I got to get on it. I pass that book at like airport bookshops, Hudson News all the time. Next time, if I'm ever in an airport again, we're doubt right now on that, right? I'm going to grab it and dive in. I'm intrigued by what you were saying there, Thomas, that you actually, would you say you just kind of we all love the main book series, but it's like my favorite reading experience so far has been Fire and Blood Part 1. Is that kind of similar to you where you love the main story, you love what's going on there, but you just love kind of the way this is presented? Yeah, it's just the way it's presented. It's Egg specifically. Like if I had my choice for the House of the Dragon series, we'd pick up with Egg as a young man kind of after those events. So, I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of the question, but yeah, that's.
You're doing great. Ace, what else you diving into? Stuff we're reading as well, or what other ancillary Game of Thrones material do you enjoy?
You know what I never really got into as I was watching the show and as I was reading the books or anything was lands. I wasn't a big lands guy, but now I kind of am. But Lands of Fire and Ice has a lot of details in there. And if I have to be honest, I am so bad at this, but there's this YouTube channel that kind of does a video of like each section of the book. I don't know. You might know who it is, Ken, but he's great. And he kind of breaks down like this unexplored region, that unexplored region, this people have this culture, that kind of thing. And it's super fascinating. And I do that for a lot of books. I look at the maps and I study the maps. I do that. I've done that for Hunger Games quite a bit. Shout out to Hunger Games. I know that US map like crazy. Pan Am is like my second home. So I've been doing that a lot with Lands of Fire and Ice now.
I do the maps too. I rewatched the Hobbit series with Grace, and I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, the movies, Jackson's movies, but the Hobbit movies, I was like, let me revisit, let me see what's going on. And there's still some things I didn't like, and the movies are a little impersonal at times, but there's a lot of things I started to get pulled into more. And what the first thing I did after we completed 3 movies, I started looking up the maps, Ace, and I was just like, okay, the Iron Hills, Lonely Mountain. I don't know. We are just of a certain ilk when the maps start pulling you into the stories.
Yes. Yes.
This one here, I wanted to go back up and get this comment. Donald Long has a great answer here. He says, mine's the app of A World of Ice and Fire. So yeah, that is possible. I do have it on here. If you guys out there listening or watching haven't picked up on that app, it's I was trying to bring it up here as fast as I can. World of Ice and Fire app there. Yeah, it's so good, man. And you can just kind of poke around, and I'll do, Donald, you probably do this too. I'll just be like, today I want to study the Tyrells, and I'll just start typing them up and go through it all there. So I don't know if you guys use that at all on your phones or anything. Ace, Thomas?
I haven't tapped into that yet. Nope.
You got to tap.
It's all YouTube channels for me.
No, there's some great ones out there. I love watching the real, the ones that put the fights, the battles. The Battle of Trident. I'll watch that one and just study it. Like, oh, that's what happened. We are of that ilk. You get pulled into the world. I enjoy the why of stories more than the hows and the whats, but I love diving on into those things as well. Hibbley Scribs loves the maps as well. And Lauren Romo, she is a Hunger Game fan here too. I read the books too. You know who suggested I read those books? I'll never forget. He put it in my hands and said, you must read it. Christian Harloff. He's a big Hunger Games fan. I don't think he talks about that enough there. All right. We got some other questions here pre-selected. Then I'll start taking some from the audience here. Donald Long checking in here. Actually, first, Darth Pickle asks, is there pizza in Westeros? Asking for Ken. I think hot pie. I don't think there's pizza yet, but hot pie is close to inventing it, Thomas. That's true, right?
Sure. I'll give you that.
Bravos.
Bravo.
You can find it in Bravos.
That's true.
Bravos has pizza, man.
A Bravosi cheese pie is what I think they call it. This question comes from Donald Long, who's in chat watching now, but he posted this on the Discord server. Donald, thanks for your support over there on the Patreon page. He's one of the executive producer supporters. Donald says this: hey, Ken and company, I have a what will happen type of question. If Jon does become the king in the North in the books like he does in the show, and if Lady Stoneheart is still on her vengeance killing spree, how do you think she'll take the news of the so-called bastard becoming king in the North, and in some way in the old mind of the old Catelyn stealing what she thought should have rightfully been Robb's? Okay, so this is a great interesting question here, because it's what ifs. King of the North, Jon does have that title, albeit for a shorter amount of time than many would have thought. Sansa kind of picks that reign up. I'm sure Catelyn or Lady Stoneheart or whatever left of her would like that. But Lady Stoneheart versus Jon Snow, King of the North. What do you guys think, Thomas? Do you think she'd care at all or move past it, or is she even aware of it?
I think she's got to become aware of it. I think that we're all used to the relationship that Kat and Jon have in the show, where it's tense, but it's also very minimal. Like, we don't get a lot of them together. In the book, we really see that Kat has a deep, deep resentment towards Jon and the bastard that her husband brought home. I don't even want to talk about the dark places my mind might go with that. Like, I envision a Lady Stoneheart going after the bastard a little bit.
No, I want to know. What's the darkest vision you're having, Tom?
I have this worry that maybe the revenge extends that way, and maybe that's how, when they find out Jon's lineage, maybe there's something to do with Lady Stoneheart that plays a role in that.
Okay. Yeah, Ace, what do you think?
Man, it's definitely tough. It's a complex question because if you look at Lady Stoneheart so far, I don't know if her wrath would extend to the extent of a bastard and what that represents and what John represents. Like, you can say yes, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know if she feels like that that John somehow committed something against her that she must take vengeance against, even though she is Lady Stoneheart and that's what she does. I don't know if that's how far it'll go, though. I just don't see it, but maybe. I don't know.
The test might be what happens between her and Brienne, right? Because that's kind of the last thing we kind of see with that thing between them. It looks like it's not going good for Brienne, and she says that one thing to kind of stop it or something. We'll see. Maybe you turn the page and Lady Stoneheart's like, "Oh wait, hey, Brienne of Tarth, you're great, you're good," or something bad happens. I don't know. Great question. I love having those questions. We kind of answer these on the fly, and that's what I love doing, going with our gut and our emotions. But that's one of those ones that you kind of think about after a while. So Eric Moreau just says, she remembers. So yeah, there you go. And Eric's also right. In the show, she has definitely did express remorse about John, yet to, didn't get to see that in the books or read that in the books. But maybe Lady Stoneheart will. Maybe she knocks on John's cabin up there at the wall. And or maybe at Winterfell and just says, I'd like to talk about some things. And she has a smoker's voice apparently now. All right. Some calls. We got some calls here. This is from our friend Tamor House Butter. He will never tell me how to say his name correctly, except for in this call, he finally slips up and he says it correctly because he and his brother Abdul, who are watching live now, love seeing me struggle over their name. These are two great cats. Shared some drinks with them in New York. And here's what Tamor has to say today.
Hey Ken, Andres, Sir Thomas, and Casterly Talk fans. This is Tamor of House Burta from the Shadows of the East.
There it goes.
Hope you're all safe and doing well. I'd like to address this to Andres. I too love the characters Lord Peter, Lord Tywin, and Prince Oberyn. My question to you for this episode is about Lord Peter. I was very fascinated by how he manipulated people to his advantage and climbed the ladder through chaos. It is, after all, one of the greatest speeches of the show. My only frustration about this character is his obsession over the ladies of House Stark, first trying to take Catelyn's hand in marriage and then Sansa's. I believe he could have won it all if only he put aside his lust and focused on accumulating whatever power he needed to take the Iron Throne, then pursue whoever he wanted as his queen. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll send in questions about Tywin and Oberyn the next time we're on. Always great hearing from you on here and your other shows. Much love to you, everyone, and stay safe.
All right. I'm looking forward to Tamor's sharing our love of Tywin, Ace. You and I are sometimes in a bucket of our absolute love of Tywin there. All right. So this is a question. We'll start with you, Andres, because you are perhaps one of the biggest Baelish fans I know. I know a couple others right there with you. I don't know if do you have the Chaos as a Ladder speech memorized? That might be the thing that puts you in the top spot. One of my friends does. She plays it in her car, just driving around town. It's intimidating. All right. So, Andres, Baelish, lust, get in the way and this is regardless. We know, especially you and I have talked, Ace, there's some things, definitely things you as a Baelish fan had issue with in season 7 and his downfall. Let's just put that as best we can aside and just go into the story here and talk about his downfall. How much was it lust? How much was it just him being a little blind in that area? How could he have achieved his goals?
It is so tough. I mean, obviously, I like how you mentioned that my issues with his conclusion, because I feel like it's hard for me to avoid that, obviously, because I almost feel like I don't think he would let his lust get in the way, maybe at least not book Baelish.
Gotcha.
And I feel like he was so goal oriented to the point where he knew what he was doing with his other side with Sansa, that he knew that I'm going to reach where I'm going to go and I'm still going to have what I want to have. I can do both. And he was so good at accomplishing both, but he still wanted his number one goal, which is to have it all, kind of thing. Yeah. And I've predicted, and I've said it so many times before, that I wanted Baelish to win the whole game. I wanted him to be on the throne. And I still think that he could have done it. I have a hard time believing that he would let his lust get in the way. Obviously, Baelish does.
Yeah.
And he definitely has a hard time with that. But there's even, again, another YouTube video, I forget who it is, who kind of made my argument for me in this question that Tamor asked, which is saying that I don't think Baelish would have made such a big mistake like that. And I'm talking about the Sansa Ramsay Bolton mistake.
Yeah.
That whole thing seems so not Baelish, to the point where it's like, what are you doing? That's like a really dumb move.
Yeah.
And Baelish is not dumb.
Yeah.
That I just feel like, I'm sorry, but I just feel like the show really had like a hard time to dealing with Baelish's brain, that they kind of dumbed him down quite a bit towards the later seasons of the show. And that's kind of my only conclusion.
Could it have been? No, it couldn't have been though. Like the stuff with he seems to not know Ramsay, doesn't research him enough, whatever it might be. Whatever he does know and doesn't know, he'll never let us know, especially Sansa. I think he does start making those mistakes. I always give that example of Barry Pepper's sniper character in Saving Private Ryan. He's starting to miss the tank. And maybe that leads to some flailing. Maybe that leads to what's going on. And the chaos is not working for him as much. He's not getting ahead of it as much as he used to. Maybe that might just be a justification on my part, trying to soothe your soul, Ace. I don't know there. Yeah, that's to me one of the bigger mistakes. If he's making mistakes, the Arya Sansa stuff is here or there. Might be, I think, a lot of lust in play with Sansa. But yeah, the under appreciating the true evil of Ramsay Bolton might have been his biggest mistake.
Yeah, I'm with you guys both there.
Yeah, Thomas, you're on board with that?
Yeah, I am completely. Baelish in the book gets, I think, more intelligent, albeit he does still make mistakes. He continually kind of gets more intelligent, more cunning, and show Baelish it seemed to kind of dive off after about season 5. Tail down.
Here's a follow-up. This is great. I really, this is a great comment from Lauren Romo. She says, I can't be the only one that just hated Littlefinger from minute 1, right? LOL, she says, I don't think I cheered so much in the show when he finally got what he deserved. Ace, does that hurt your soul a little bit? Does that hurt your soul?
I had a watch party, which I've never done, Ken. I always watch Game of Thrones completely alone, but it was that season finale. I believe it was the season finale. And my entire, like, there's 20 of us screaming, cheering, and I was just foaming at the mouth, just like ripping my hair out, being like, that's the dumbest writing I've ever seen on the show. Baelish would not be that dumb. It was terrible.
I love that. But
yeah,
this is what I love about the show, because, you know, Ace, you and I we just love Tywin Lannister. And Thomas, I don't want to keep you out of there. Are you a Tywin mark as well?
I'm a Tywin guy. I think I'm more on the love to hate side, though.
Sure.
Tywin, yeah.
I have to remind myself to hate because I just love Tywin so much sometimes. I have to be like, oh, that's right. Not good. Everyone knows I love Stannis. Shout out to Eric Monroe and chat, Team Stannis forever. But what I love is this show, because there's all these wonderful shades of gray that everyone loves and everyone becomes obsessed with in our own ways, that it's sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it's easy to forget that some of these characters do despicable things, and there are people that root against them, like Lauren and Baelish. It's not unlike, Andres, you going back to season 4, as early as season 4, going, I don't like this Dany cat, man. She's doing some things I cannot get behind. You were on that train early on, where other people still to this day, and I'm one of them, even though she frustrated me, just love Dany to no end. So it's almost a reversal of that, right?
Yeah, totally. I get it. I totally get it. But again, when you have like F-17 fighter jets in medieval times, it's a bit much.
That's true. Eric says, I did love when he pushed Lysa Arryn out the moon door. And then Eric says, the one true king, Stannis. Lauren agrees with you, Thomas. Loves to hate him, but respect the time for sure. I just still think in that world, he's the one who's winning the game, and it's brutal, and he's pays for his sins, but he does a lot of things right. Final prepare question of the day. Then we're going to go live chat here as we finish out the show. This has been a lot of fun. Our first Casterly Talk live. This is our friend Alden Diaz. He works in radio, so he always has a good, strong voice and a good, strong question. This one is going to be hard to answer.
Hey, what's going on, Ken and the Casterly Talk crew? It's Alden Diaz here in quarantine, so lots of questions running through my mind, lots of podcasts I've been listening to, and I was trying to think of a fun one that could be used on Casterly Talk, and I started thinking about the small council and all the different iterations that we see from, Ned's first day on the job. I loved your episode on Ned that you did with Sir Thomas, and, thinking about the version that he dealt with all the way to the version that we see at the end that features fan favorites like, of course, Tyrion, but also Brienne of Tarth and Sir Davos. It made me wonder, who would you put on your small council out of the characters that we see, out of the characters that have vied for positions of power over time? For me personally, I think that someone like, Marjorie Tyrell would be great to have on the small council in terms of, dealing with outreach to the kingdom and things like that. But I also see the advantages of having darker personalities. So let me know what you think.
Oh man! All right, I was jotting down just different jobs to have: Master of Coin, Master of Ships. I put Master of PR, which might be what Marjorie Tyrell would do. All right, this is. We'll start tossing them out here, Thomas. If you are king, Sir Thomas Tuttall takes the throne. Who you putting on your small council?
Tough. You gotta put. I gotta have Ned as my hand. I mean, there's no going wrong with honor on your right hand. Master of Coin, you gotta stick Baelish in that spot.
You gotta keep him there, huh?
I don't know how you take him out. I mean, I feel like he just was happy to keep finding gold for Tywin because Tywin's a threatening guy. But I mean, if it was someone who was maybe on his good side, maybe he might have worked harder to balance those books. Yeah, I like the Marjorie Tyrell pull for kind of PR. My only other thought would be to send like another Stark, but who do you send at that point unless you're going back and they're all still alive? Then you could send like a Robb or maybe even like a coalition of people. Send a Stark and a Baratheon, two houses that are known to have been together, right? Send Robb and send Renly together to go meet with people and do things like that.
Good answers. Thinking on the fly there. Ace, you take the throne. You come up from the south. The armies of Dorne win, and you sit on the Iron Throne. Who you got on your team?
It's so tough. I mean, I'm gonna throw in my boy Baelish. I have to. I'm gonna give him Master of Coin. Why not? I mean, that's kind of how he got his start. That's kind of how he rose to the top. Was Master of Coin. Master of Ships. Yara, why not? Yara Greyjoy. I mean, she's kind of the GOAT with that. My hand. I know this is a basic answer, but Tyrion. I'll pick Tyrion as my hand. And give me Barristan Selmy. Give me Barristan Selmy on there. Yeah. As Kingsguard. Yeah.
Lord Commander of the Kingsguard,
yes,
back on there. Yeah, that was definitely, there was a reason they needed to get him out, right? There's a reason, and I know on the show they address, he's not in the small council in the show, definitely in the books, and they kind of address it a little bit. That's a good list. The Yara's that's a great pick for Master of Ships.
Yeah, that's one that I was like, oh, I need that one.
Yeah, so Master Coin. Here's the thing: unless you're pulling in, someone from Bravos and just saying you just sit on it, you're the bank anyways. Be my Master Coin. Anyone else in their book or show, not named Baelish, not named Tyrion, has had just been ineffectual in like the Master Coin type of position. Baelish is solid. I'm gonna say I just know too much about Baelish, and I might see if Tyrion wants to take the job again. I know he'd probably want to be hand. Master Whispers, we know, well, here's the thing. I might even stick someone like, if Arya wants a desk job, she might be better to control some of the information and snooping around with her skills than Varys, though I do love Varys. Master Coin, I might just say, Tyrion, this is for you, because I definitely want the hand. I'm looking at Ned, but I think in the end, I've got to go Davos for my hand. Not only is he just loyal, but he's not, I know he's not going to be afraid to stand up to me. Ned, and that was your choice, Thomas. Ned, as we talked last week, what's one of his biggest things? Stubbornness.
Honorable to a fault.
Honorable to a fault. And I think he'd be on my side. I'd like to say I'd be a good king, but if things start going wrong, he might just make some mistakes where I think Davos can not talk his way out of it, but Davos is great with PR. So he might be able to smooth things over a lot better. My Lord Commander, but at this point in his life, I'm going to assume, bad things didn't happen. I would try to say, Jorah, at this point in your life, maybe take this vow and serve us in this way, because I love you so much. I need you around. Maybe to another choice. Oh, my master of ships, I go Salador San. He's a pirate, but just he has connections. He knows some ports. Yar is a great choice too, though. Yar is a great choice. Then I'd find a way. Maybe this is the dream scenario. I'd find a way if all the players are on the field, my hand of the king, to kind of unite everybody. I want to be a uniter, Ken the Uniter. I might say Mance Rayder, if he's still alive, come on down. We'll give you some power. We'll recognize the free folk, but come on down and be my hand of the king. Rule 8 kingdoms. We'll add the north, the true north, as an 8th kingdom. You don't even have to bow. You don't have to wear a cape. Nothing. No crowns. No nothing on. Just come on down and help me keep everything in line. I don't think he'd do it, but I definitely want Mance Rayder around if I could. I don't know. So, any other final thoughts? Anyone else you want to toss in there? Any last minute?
I mean, obviously, Master of Whispers is tough. Like you said, Arya is a choice. Maybe Braun, if he like punches the right people. I was doing some intimidating, and I heard.
Taymor's got an answer here. He says, I'll go with Tywin as my hand. Baelish is master of coin. Varys is master of whispers. I mean, it's hard. Yara is master of ships. Great choice. Ned is my Lord Commander of the King's Guard. I guess if you can say Ned, oh, hey, thanks for the super chat there. We'll come back to that question here in a second. Ned is Lord Commander. Is, if you can get to him and be like, look, things have changed in your life, just like Jorah. Like, maybe you accept this post now, and your kids are already good. You're gone. You're grown. I don't know. Eric says, oh, nice wildcard pick. He did unite the wildlings. Yeah, Ace.
No, I was going to say, I forget her name, Arianne Martell.
Oh, Arianne Martell, yeah, from the books, yeah.
Yeah, maybe her as a hand of the king.
That'd be solid.
Get that Dornish kingdom in there.
Would you want Oberyn around you at all in any capacity? He was on there a little bit, but under different circumstances. But if he was around, again, all players on the table, what would you want Oberyn to do? Or are you just too wild to contain in an
I think he'd be too wild. That's why I went Arianne instead of Oberyn. Yeah. I think she'd be a little bit more solid than him. Yeah,
I agree with that. Going back to the super chat question here. Thanks for that. Says, I'm optimistic George will release both books this year. What a review on how the show handled the White Walkers. So, yeah, this is a great question because I both love how the White Walkers were handled all the way to the end, but at the same time, my expectations took what they were show only, took it in a different direction, and towards the end, they were not as intimidating or frightening to me. I was legit, I'm like Josh McCouga. I get scared real easily. Like when season 2, when John sees him, or when Sam and Gilly run into the one, I'm freaked out when the crows start going. Like I get the little shaky nerves, like the chills. They scared me. By the end, there's just obviously too many of them, and I love what was happening, but the feel of them change. Where do you guys come down on the White Walkers show only?
I struggle a little bit in the later seasons. Just again, the threat feels to dissipate. Like, we kind of talked about Baelish's intelligence diving off after season 5. It felt like after the big fight at the wall in season 4, the White Walkers kind of took that same dive a little bit for me. Still very enjoyable. I very much enjoyed it, but they just didn't feel like the threat they were presented as originally. Yeah.
Okay. Ace.
Anytime there's a kryptonite angle introduced to an ultimate villain, there's always this hesitation of like, oh, this isn't fun anymore. I mean, it happened in The Walking Dead with the walkers. Like walkers were like, oh my God. And now it's like walkers are just like, I don't know, like grass growing and you could just cut the grass. It's the dragon glass effect too. It's the idea of like, all you have to do is like throw dragon glass at them and they just disappear. Yeah. But I love their look. I think their look is one of the best looking like villains, creature effects I've ever seen on TV or movies. I've talked to you, Ken, quite a bit about the combination between CGI and practical effects and how they use the CG to make them look like they were glowing and their eyes were glowing and they were made of ice and glass. And then in the practical effects side, they made the whole thing. And I love the fusion between the two. So look wise, I think they look amazing.
Yeah, and a note on the look really quick, if I can. I loved how that continually evolved. Like up until season 4, that was in continuous motion. And where they settled, like you said, Andreas, was great. It's one of the best creepy bad guy designs because they glow in the dark. It's all the things you expect out of something horrific.
Yeah, I love what's going on there. Lord Romo says Hard Home was that snap White Walker moment for me. Yeah, Hard Home's example of they worked for me all through in the end. And some of the bigger questions of great points about the kryptonite, and at some point the answer is just kind of the answer. They're going to lose in some way, shape, or form, or the show. We always thought, is there a 2% chance the Night King just wins, and that's the end of the show? With George, you never know. I think they worked for me. They just worked differently along the way, and the way they ended up feeling was different to me than how I felt early. But Hard Home still works for me so much. Just the dogs barking. I hear the dogs barking. Even now, I get that oh no, it's happening. Even though I've seen it 50 times, and that was something that really worked for me there too. Eric Monroe says this in the books they have their own language, and they were supposed to in the show. I had on the old Screen Junkies show, Watching Thrones. We had David J. Peterson. I believe was his name, who great guy, came on, and he was the guy who does all the languages on many projects, many movies, many shows, but he did the Dothraki, he had a language prepared for the children, and there was going to be some stuff with the White Walkers. It just never came to pass. Do you guys, where do you come down on that decision? Again, it's show. You got to maybe a different approach than the books. Would you have liked to have heard some sort of White Walker language on the show? Thomas?
Yeah. Again, I think we get it a little bit in the cold open or the pilot. And I would have hoped that it stuck around a little bit more. That was a miss for me. The silence was, I think, one thing that felt like a miss for me throughout the whole series.
Ace?
Yeah, I mean, I heard the audio. I think you can find it on YouTube of the sample of what they were going to use, and it sounds incredible. I mean, it sounds super cool. I think it's more of a time thing than it is a confusion thing. I think they just didn't have enough time to introduce it, but I think it would have added a level of intimidation, showing they have intelligence and they're not just this blanket zombies just trying to freeze everything. And it would have added a creepier factor to the White Walkers.
You guys are convinced me more. I didn't think I still don't know if I need it personally, but you guys are both making great cases for just a little bit more of that creepy, oh my God, what am I watching kind of effect could have worked, but they made that choice not to. A couple more minutes left in the show if you're watching live. So if you have a question, we're going to start taking questions live from the conversation going on in chat, like this one here from our friend Will McLean. I've met Will in Houston at the live Schmodown out there. Great cap. He says, do you think we'll ever see a console GOT Song of Ice and Fire video game? Seems like to me there are some big opportunities there. There's been some games along the way, right? We did have one. I remember in the show, we had the Telltale games, which, I tried really hard to make different choices. It all seemed to lead to the same pond. And then, I play sometimes. I don't play it as much anymore. I've had the Conquest app game where I just keep getting attacked in the middle of the night. All my resources stolen. So I just kind of stopped playing it. You guys, I think you guys are like me. You'd love to sit down in a Red Dead Redemption style game or even a Fallen Order style game, anything. Give me a Battlefront style game. I know Lord of the Rings tried that famously and it didn't work. What do you guys want still possible to happen? What do you guys want from Game of Thrones, Thomas?
So there is that one old role-playing game that they did make, and the game itself mechanically was a disaster. But they kind of had the right idea. The struggle for me with a big open world video game in this world is agency. How do you have agency when everything is written? That's the struggle for me. Part of my love of video games is feeling like what you do has an effect on the world around you. And I think I would struggle to feel that way in a Game of Thrones role-playing game. The same way I struggled in the Telltale game. It felt like my choices didn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, the second time I did one of the episodes of Telltale game, because I think the game froze and I had a chance to go back. So I was trying to play it like I'd take all the time in the world, but like, what do I want to say to Cersei? My meter's running out. I went back. I was like, I don't know, stab her. And like nothing could take me off the path. But I do like, and Erica Roja said this in chat. House Forrester in the show or in the game, which George put some of this new stuff in. It's canon, so to speak. I did like a lot of stuff that was presented in that Telltale game. It just didn't work. Ace, what game do you want to play?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to answer the question, I think the time has passed. If I'm being real honest, I could see like almost like a. Do they have a Game of Thrones fighting game?
No.
I could see like a Game of Thrones style fighting game, like fighting pits, whatever you want to call it, and just do like Jaime Lannister versus Dane, or just it just be crazy style.
Okay.
Fight game. Brienne versus I don't know the Mountain.
You just won me.
I think that'd be fun.
You won me over, Ace. You won me over.
Yeah.
Picking the best fighters, make it like a Street Fighter 2 style game, or Mortal Kombat 9, whatever you want to make. I haven't played fighting games in a long time, but the fact that I could just see on the screen Oberyn Martell versus the Sword of the Morning. Oh God, give me that. Put it in a fighting pit. I'd be going. You can even a dire wolf versus a dragon. I don't know. Go crazy. That'd be interesting to me. Something like that'd be kind of fun. Thomas, who would you want in the fighting pits?
I'd want Barristan Selmy. That'd be my first pick. I'd go to Sir Barristan and make myself feel better about that death scene.
That's a good idea too. Oh, Grey Worm. I mean, come on. And I think you could put even non fighters we didn't really see in the show. Be good there. So let me going back up here. A lot of people want to I'm saying, what was this one here? Eddie said Haskell's, give me White Walkers versus Walking Dead crossover video game. I would love that. I like that there. So couple more questions coming in here. Tamor says simply, dragons will always win, and that's not necessarily wrong there. We got some in here. Tanisha Moore's here. Hello, Tanisha, checking in, and she was talking about her rewatch. She went ahead and was going to do a big rewatch, but then watched. Here's what she says. She says, I debated going back to watch the whole series with this downtime. However, I started with season 8 and really enjoyed it a lot. She continues, I'm afraid that if I go back and watch it from the start, it might taint my appreciation of season 8. Seems all my friends who watched the whole series didn't enjoy season 8. So we've been going through our rewatches. I want to do season 1, episode 1 rewatch all the way to season 8 just so I can get the whole story again. I am a fan of season 8 overall. Some people aren't. Totally respect that. To this point, Thomas, your rewatch, I know you've been going through it. Did you want to go back to the beginning, or do you want to stick with what you just go back and relive the last season?
We went back and I watched season 8 before we started our rewatch. Now we're almost on the first season. And to be honest, it changed for me, but not in a negative way. Like I personally think if you went into it once, you probably won't be too different from it the second time you watch it. You're always going to see things during a second and third watch that you didn't see the first time, and that's kind of commonplace with any rewatch, not just Game of Thrones.
Ace?
Yeah, I think anytime you rewatch an entire show, you get a different appreciation. If I'm being honest, I have fun doing that. I do it with Buffy, which is another one of my favorite shows. I do it with Supernatural, first 1 through 5. Shout out through 1 through 5. And I think I've talked to you about it always. You're always going to get a satisfaction of realizing that the show has always been incredible, and you still have that entire catalog on HBO that you can always go back and rewatch how amazing this show was. And I think that's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, Erica Monroe says, I did mine in January. I had to watch it all now knowing the ending. That's something we've talked about before in the show, and I'm sure we're going to talk again. When you go back and kind of see moments that maybe didn't mean as much to you then. And I'm not talking about moments that the creators or writers, directors put in the show. I'm just saying there's things, emotions that are there that will connect to you differently now that you know the way it all plays out. And that's just part of the fun. Lauren Romo says, this chat is making me want to do a rewatch. Might have to do a free trial with HBO streaming service and binge. You just, HBO now, Lauren, not a sponsor. But there's so much on there to go through on HBO's great programming, like Westworld, which I've never watched Westworld, but Will McLean brought up some. Do you guys watch Westworld?
I do.
I don't.
Okay, so see this,
and I'm caught up.
The dragon, no spoilers, but you see the dragon and Dan and Dave.
I did. It was funny. It was a funny moment. Yeah,
I heard about it. Is it just a full-on cameo? They're actually there.
It's a full-blown like comedy bit. It was funny. I like that Westworld is winking at the camera a lot. Like the show started out as like this really thought-provoking, really smart sci-fi show, and now it's more like Altered Carbon. Shout out to Altered Carbon if anyone's seen that, which is a very much over-the-top comic book sci-fi show. Right. And that's kind of what Westworld has turned into, and it's great. I'm having so much fun.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't get through the pilot. I watched the first pilot and I was done. And so who knows? Maybe I'll get back. I did see this. Tanisha adds this. Didn't HBO make their content free today? I did think I saw that because for a second I was watching Clone Wars. I was flipping through my apps and I saw something pop up about that. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I pay like $14.99 a month. Are they going to reimburse me for a month or two? Or should I just cancel and get it free for a little bit? Yeah. So, hey, check it out, Lauren. This might be your opportunity, Lauren Romo. Might be your opportunity to catch up and do a rewatch. All right, we are about done here. So if you have any final questions, we'll take it while we start wrapping up the show. But this is a lot of fun. An experiment that will probably become pretty normal here for a while. Doing Casterly Talk, and I am very happy to continue to do the show because the conversation around the world of Ice and Fire definitely did not end with HBO's Game of Thrones. There's so much to talk about. We don't even get into the weeds a lot here. I love doing my shows, kind of playing with emotions, just talking about what we feel and think about things. But there's opportunities to go in deeper to characters, moments, books, maps. Maybe we just have Ace get on the show here with a map and just show us his favorite ways around the map. Maybe we can do that. That'd be kind of fun to do there too as well. So more of that coming. I want to thank all of you who watch live today, all of you who are listening a little bit later on Anchor. Don't forget, even if you watch today, just listen to the podcast again. Give us a listen. It helps out the show so we can keep this going. But excited. Can't confirm quite yet, but I think very soon. I think next week, Lon Harris will be available and working on Rachel Cushing. She's doing fortunately has a great job going on right now, even during this tough time. So we got to find her schedule work, but she's dying to come on and talk some Game of Thrones, particularly House of the Dragon and Fire and Blood. She loves that book just as much as us. So Thomas, Ace, thank you for doing this live experiment, being the guinea pigs here in the world of Casterly Talk. Thomas, tell them where they can find you, all your shows, including the ones you just launched. I want people to follow what you're doing.
You can always find me on Twitter at Thomas Rissling, and you can find every one of our shows on the Feeding the Monster podcast feed on Anchor and virtually everywhere podcasts are found. Also on Twitter at FTM Podcast Feed.
It's great stuff. I listened to it today, Thomas. I don't want to say where. All right, I was in the shower. I had it going. You talked to me. I had swim trunks on. Don't worry about that. Andres Cabrera, my Star Wars, Game of Thrones, loving friend and fellow fan of all these things. It's so great to talk to you. I'm glad you're safe and sound out there with your family in your secret bunker more soon. But you're not done working. In fact, today when you're done here, I'm probably keeping you from projects. You're going to be doing a lot of shows over there with the team you're working on. Tell everyone about it.
Yeah, again, First Cut. That is where you can find stuff I do. It's First Cut TMO on social media, and obviously First Cut, the YouTube channel. Subscribe there. The Mini Enough podcast is on there, and you can also find the Mini Enough podcast anywhere you find podcasts, which is Anchor, Spotify, iTunes. So be sure and check that out. RB3 and Sabrina are doing great stuff on there, and I'm kind of the controller between the two, and I let them go at it, and it's a lot of fun.
That is great. You're all super talented. So happy to work with you here. And more is coming. This was Casterly Talk. I believe the 56th episode of the podcast, but the first one live here on YouTube. More on the way. So stick around here on the YouTube channel. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ken Napzok. If you want to buy my book, Why We Love Star Wars, you can go to my website and get a signed copy directly from me. If you want to have something to read while you're home and has my name on it and your name in it, go to kennapzok.com, look at the shop section for that, or you can just pick up the book on Amazon, IndieBound, wherever fine books are sold. But stay inside, stay safe. We're going to get through this together. It's like the shivers way back in 59 AC. We don't want it to get that bad, so let's just all keep each other in mind and be safe. That's it for now. Casterly Talk is done. We'll see you soon for the throne, for the realm, for all of you. Bye.